At my engagement party, my fiancée's dad announced, "We're gifting them a house." Everyone cheered, until he added, "But his daughter from the previous marriage can't live there. Fresh start only." My 8-year-old heard everything. I stood up and said, "Keep your house," when I revealed I just bought a $690,000 lakefront property in my daughter's name only. My name is Carl. I'm 38, and I run a regional branch for a commercial bank in Minneapolis. On the night this all blew up, I was standing under a string of fairy lights in my fiancé's parents' backyard, holding a plastic flute of lukewarm champagne and watching my 8-year-old daughter Emma chase bubbles near the buffet table. It was our engagement party. It was also the last night I let anyone pretend my child was optional. A few weeks earlier, I'd signed a stack of papers in a quiet conference room overlooking a lake. Purchase price, $690,000. Lakefront, 3 bedrooms. Dock, owner on the deed. Emma Rose. Not me. Not my fiancé. Not Mr. and Mrs. New Family. Just my daughter. I hadn't told anyone. Not even my fiancée Lily. I told myself I wanted it to be a surprise later. The truth was uglier. I didn't trust how her family talked about fresh starts, so when her father, Mark, clinked his glass and shouted, "Everyone, quiet, I've got an announcement," my stomach tightened. He grinned in that way older men do when they think they're about to be magnanimous and hilarious at the same time. "We are so proud of these two," he said, throwing an arm around Lily, then vaguely gesturing in my direction like I was an afterthought. "So proud, in fact, that we have a special gift." The crowd, about 50, mostly her family and friends, murmured. Phones came up. Emma looked up from her plate of fruit, eyes curious. Mark puffed his chest. "We're gifting them a house." The yard exploded in cheers. People whooped. Lily covered her mouth, eyes shining, and grabbed my arm. "A house," she whispered. "Dad, are you serious?" I smiled, numb, clapping along because that seemed like what I was supposed to do. Then Mark lifted his hand for silence, flashing that same smirk. "But," he boomed, drawing the word out like a punchline, "there's one condition." I felt Emma lean against my leg. Mark looked right at me. "His daughter from the previous marriage can't live there," he said. "Fresh start only." The world narrowed to a tunnel. I heard a few nervous laughs, a couple of gasps, the rustle of dresses. Someone said, "Oh my God," under their breath. Emma's little fingers tightened around my hand. "Daddy," she whispered. My chest burned. I watched Lily's face. She flinched, but she didn't speak. Mark raised his glass like he'd said something sensible and not monstrous. "That's fair, right?" he added. "You can visit her, of course, but this house, it's for the new family." I felt something inside me go very, very still. I put my glass down. "Keep your house," I said, loud enough that the DJ's music stuttered to a stop. The yard went silent. Heads turned. Someone started recording. Emma's hand was still in mine. My other hand went to the inside pocket of my blazer where a thick cream envelope pressed against my ribs. They thought they knew where my leverage was. They had no idea that a few weeks ago I'd bought a $690,000 lakefront property in my daughter's name only, and in about 3 minutes, everyone was going to find out. I didn't grow up thinking I'd be the guy drawing boundaries at an engagement party. I grew up learning that if I wanted peace, I had to make myself smaller. My parents divorced when I was 10. My mother worked 2 jobs. My father remarried quickly and restarted his life with a new wife, a new house, and eventually, a new son. I remember my 14th birthday at my dad's place. His new wife, Jenna, had decorated the kitchen. Balloons, a small cake, "Happy Birthday, Carl," written a little too carefully in blue icing. My half-brother Tyler had turned 8 the week before. His party had been at a trampoline park with 30 kids and a custom cake shaped like a football field. Mine was just family, an off-brand soda, and a stack of envelopes. "Instead of a big party, we thought we'd do something practical," my dad had said, sliding a card across the table. "We put $50 into a savings account for you. It'll grow." Tyler tore around the table making airplane noises with a new toy. I blew out my candles and nodded. "Thank you," I said. Later, when I asked if I could invite a couple of friends over after cake, Jenna smiled tightly. "Maybe next year," she said. "This is Tyler's weekend too, remember? We don't want him to feel overshadowed." I learned young that be flexible meant be invisible. Years later, when Emma was born, I promised myself I'd never let her feel like the extra kid in someone else's story. Her mom and I didn't work out. The divorce was civil, but not warm. We split custody. I paid support without complaint. I rearranged my schedule at the bank so I could pick Emma up from school on my days. Every time I dropped her back at her mom's, she'd squeeze me and say, "You'll come get me again?" Every time, I'd say. I was used to being the stable adult, the one who quietly did what needed to be done. Then, I met Lily. We collided in the most cliché way possible. She walked into the bank demanding to speak to a manager because her debit card had been frozen on a trip. I stepped out of my office, smoothed things over, printed her a temporary card, and walked her through fraud prevention. She was funny, sharp. She made a joke about how bankers are just therapists with worse lighting, and I laughed harder than I should have. We got coffee a week later. On our third date, I told her about Emma. She smiled and said, "I love kids." The first time she met Emma, my daughter hid behind my legs for a full 10 minutes. Then Lily sat on the floor and started drawing cats on a napkin. By the end of the night, Emma had a collection of napkin cats and was chattering about her favorite cartoon. I watched them and thought, maybe this can work. But little comments started creeping in. On a Sunday brunch, Lily's mom, Susan, asked, "So, when you two have kids, will Emma be with you full-time or—" "She splits time with her mom," I said. 50-50. Susan's smile faltered for half a second. "Oh," she said, "that's a lot of logistics." At a barbecue, Mark clapped me on the back and said, "You're getting a do-over, son. You can do it right this time." I laughed awkwardly. Emma's not a mistake to correct. He waved a hand. "You know what I mean. It'll be nice to have a proper family under one roof." The first time he said proper family, something in me twinged. I told myself he was old-fashioned, clumsy with words. I wanted it to be ignorance, not malice. One night, Lily and I were lying in bed, wedding blogs open on her laptop, when she casually said, "So I was thinking, maybe we could have the nursery close to our room, and Emma could have the bedroom at the end of the hall? It might be good to keep things a bit separate when the baby comes." I frowned. "Separate how?" She shrugged. "Just, the new baby will need more attention. And Emma will be older. It'll be different. The new baby and Emma are both my kids," I said. "It shouldn't feel like two different families under one roof." "Oh my God, that's not what I meant," she said, rolling her eyes. "You always take things so literally." I went quiet. I'd learned, over a lifetime, that raising these red flags often just got me labeled oversensitive. Still, it sat in my chest like a stone. When we got engaged, Mark insisted on hosting the party. "It's tradition," he said. "We'll invite everyone. My colleagues, our church group, your friends. It'll be a big deal." He also insisted on handling most of the planning. "You just show up," he told Lily. "Let your dad do this for you." There were small jabs all through the planning. The invitation draft came over email. "Join us to celebrate the engagement of Lily and Carl." No mention of "and family." No, and his daughter Emma. I brought it up. "This is about us," Lily said. "Emma is going to be part of it, obviously, but the invitation doesn't need all that. It's already long, already long." Emma's name apparently was extra. Still, I told myself, you're imagining the worst. The week before the party, we met at Mark and Susan's to go over seating. The dining table was covered in little name cards. I picked one up. "Emma," I read. "Kids' table?" Lily nodded. "It'll be fun. There'll be coloring books and stuff." I scanned the list. Emma was the only child from our side. Every other kid was a cousin under 5. "She's 8, I said. "She's old enough to sit with us." Mark snorted. "She'll be fine, son. Besides, the head table is just for the two of you and the parents." "The parents?" I repeated. "Meaning us," Susan said. "No offense." I looked at my daughter's name on the card and felt that old, familiar invisibility creeping up my spine. At home that night, after Emma was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with a glass of water and my laptop open to a listing I'd been watching for months. A lakefront property an hour from the city. Dock, small beach, fireplace, good schools in the district. I clicked through the photos. Sun glinting off water, a little girl about Emma's size sitting at the edge of the dock, feet dangling. I checked my savings, my investments, the equity in my condo. I ran the numbers like the banker I am. Carefully. Calmly. I could do it. I could give Emma a place that would never treat her as an afterthought. I called my friend Jenna, not my stepmother, a different Jenna who happens to be a real estate attorney. Am I insane? I asked her. For wanting to buy a house for your kid? She said, no. For marrying into that family without a prenup? A little. We joked, but then we got serious. She walked me through setting up a trust, structuring ownership, so that Emma was the sole beneficiary. You understand, she said, turning her pen in her fingers, that if you do it this way, it's hers. You can't just change your mind because someone wants a fresh start. That's the point, I said. We signed in a bland conference room that smelled like coffee and toner. When the ink dried, Jenna slid a thick envelope across the table. Deed, trust documents, finalized purchase, she said. Congratulations, Dad. I held the envelope and felt something like relief and grief twisted together. Thank you, I said. I didn't know then how quickly I'd need it. The night of the engagement party, I dressed in a navy blazer and the only pair of dress shoes I actually like. Emma wore a yellow dress with white flowers that she'd picked out herself. She twirled in front of the mirror. Do I look fancy? She asked. You look perfect, I said, smoothing a stray curl behind her ear. On the drive over, she kicked her feet from the booster seat. Will I get to do a speech? She asked. I laughed. Maybe not a speech, but you can say something if you want. I want to say that I'm happy you're happy, she said carefully, like she'd rehearsed it. And that I'll share my stuffed animals with the baby. My throat tightened. That's very kind. At Mark and Susan's, the backyard was decked out like a Pinterest board. Lanterns in the trees, a rented arch with flowers, a long table with a "Love is Sweet" sign, and cupcakes. Lily spotted us and rushed over, hugging Emma first. Hi, Peanut, she cooed. You look so pretty. Then she kissed me. The crowd clapped. Mark made a joke about get a room, and everyone laughed a little too loud. I noticed the kids' table near the fence. Plastic chairs, paper plates, crayons. Emma's name in loopy handwriting at one place. Can I sit with you? She asked. For now, I said. Later you can sit where you like. I wasn't going to make her beg for a seat at my own table. People cycled through. Co-workers of Mark's, Lily's church friends, cousins, neighbors I'd never met. They shook my hand, some of them saying, You're a lucky guy, but with that tone that suggested Lily was the main prize, and I was, well, stable, solid, a good provider. One of Mark's colleagues leaned in and said, First marriage? Second. I said, I have a daughter. He raised his eyebrows. Ah, starting over. Good for you. I swallowed the urge to say, I'm not starting over. My life didn't reset because you just showed up. Instead, I smiled tightly. Emma, I called. Come meet someone. She trotted over, stood close to me, fingers grazing my hand. This is my daughter, Emma, I said. The colleague's smile flickered, then returned. Cute, he said. So Lily wants a big family, huh? My jaw clenched. There it was again, the quiet demotion of my child to a footnote. As the sun dipped lower, Mark moved toward the speakers and tapped the mic. Lily squeezed my hand. Dad's going to make a speech, she said. He's so excited. I caught Jenna's eye across the yard, my attorney friend, not related to Mark. She lifted her glass, eyebrows raised like a question. You okay? I gave a half shrug. I could have walked away then. I could have taken Emma and left before any of it happened, but I told myself, it's just a speech. How bad could it be? Mark's voice boomed through the speakers. All right, everyone, let's bring it in. People drifted closer. The DJ turned the music down. The fairy lights flicked on. I felt Emma's small hand slide into mine. The envelope in my pocket pressed against my ribs like a heartbeat. This, I realized as everyone turned toward Mark and Lily and me. This is the stage. Mark started soft. He talked about the first time Lily had said my name, how she'd lit up talking about me. He made jokes about bankers, about interest rates, about me being a safe investment. People laughed. I chuckled on cue. Then he pivoted. A father always wants the best for his little girl, he said. And Lily has always been my princess. So when she told me she'd found the man she wanted to build a life with, I said, then we're going to help you build it. Literally. He paused, soaking in the attention. We're gifting them a house. The cheer was instant. Lily gasped and covered her mouth with both hands. Dad, she said, tears in her eyes. What? Susan dabbed at her own eyes theatrically. We've been working on it for months, she said. Found the perfect place, already in escrow. I smiled, but it felt glued on. A house. From them, I thought of the deed in my pocket, the hours with Jetta crafting a future that didn't depend on anyone's approval. Where? Lily breathed. Not far, Mark said. Great schools, big yard, 4 bedrooms. Room for expansion, laughter. He turned to me and his tone shifted just a hair. Of course Carl comes with some history, he said. I went cold. But we're all about second chances in this family, right? He continued. Fresh starts. He held up a finger, milking the attention. There's one condition. Emma's fingers squeezed mine. I felt her ribcage move in quick breaths. Mark looked me dead in the eye. His daughter from the previous marriage can't live there, he announced. Fresh start only. The words hit like a slap. The silence that followed was loud. Someone choked on a laugh and turned it into a cough. A cousin muttered, Mark, come on. Under his breath, Emma's voice was barely audible. Daddy, she whispered. Does he mean me? I looked down at her. Her eyes were huge. Filling with tears, she was trying very hard not to let fall. In that instant, I was back at my 14th birthday, listening to my dad talk about doing something practical instead of a real celebration, watching my half-brother tear around with toys I wasn't allowed to touch. I heard all the versions of you'll understand when you're older, and we have to think of the new baby, and don't make it about you. I heard Mark a month earlier saying proper family under one roof. I heard Lily that night in bed, drawing invisible lines between the baby and Emma. And I heard my own voice for years, swallowing every protest until it curdled into silence. Not this time. I released Emma's hand gently. Stay right here, sweetheart, I said softly. By Jenna. I nodded toward my attorney, who had moved closer, face thunderous. She instinctively reached for Emma. I've got her, Jenna said. I stepped forward. Keep your house, I said. My voice came out clear. Calm. People turned fully toward me now. Mark blinked. What? I said, keep your house, I repeated. We won't be needing it. Lily's mouth fell open. Carl? What are you doing? What I should have done the first time someone suggested my kid was a problem to be managed, I said. Mark laughed, but it was tight. Now, no need to get emotional, he said. We're just talking about practicalities. Blended families are complicated. Blended families are not complicated, I said. Cowards are. A ripple went through the crowd. Excuse me? Mark snapped. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the envelope. This, I said, holding it up, is the deed to a $690,000 lakefront property. Paid for. No mortgage. It's in a trust, with exactly one owner. I walked to the small table near the speakers, picked up the mic Mark had been using. The feedback squealed, then settled. One owner? Someone asked. I looked at Emma. She was clutching Jenna's hand, tears tracking down her cheeks now. Yes, I said. My daughter, Emma. A hush fell over the yard. I opened the envelope and held up the top document, not close enough for the phones to capture every detail, but enough for the bolded name to be visible. Emma Rose. This is her house, I said. Her safe place. Her future. Bought with my money in her name. No conditions. No fresh start only. No clauses that erase her existence. Lily made a strangled sound. Why didn't you tell me? Because, I said, I wanted to see how you and your family really saw her before I tied my life to yours. Mark stepped toward me, face reddening. You're making a scene, he hissed. You made the scene, I said, keeping my voice steady. You did it when you stood in front of your friends and said my child wasn't welcome in your version of my life. It was a joke, Susan said weakly. He didn't mean, you don't joke about throwing a child out of her home. Jenna cut in, voice sharp. I handed Jenna a copy of the trust. If anyone's confused, I said into the mic, this lovely woman is my attorney. She can confirm that what I'm saying is legally binding. Jenna took the paper, eyes scanning it out of professional habit. Everything he said checks out, she said. Emma is the sole beneficiary. Carl can use it while she's a minor, but he cannot sell it without a court's permission, and when she's of age, it's hers outright. Mark sputtered. You went to a lawyer behind Lily's back? Yes, I said, because your daughter kept saying it's not a big deal every time you diminished my kid. Someone needed to make it a big deal. Lily shook her head, tears spilling. You're overreacting, she said. My dad he has no filter. He didn't mean she couldn't ever come over. Just not live with us full time. Do you think Emma doesn't understand the difference? I asked quietly. Lily looked at Emma, then back at me. She's 8, she said. Kids are resilient. I felt something snap. Stop using resilient as code for it's okay to hurt her, I said. I turned back to the crowd. For the record, I said into the mic, any future home I live in will be one my daughter is welcome in, fully. Not as a guest, not as a weekend visitor to her own father's life. If that's too much for any of you to accept, that's your problem, not mine. Mark's jaw clenched. You'll throw away a house over pride? He demanded. I met his eyes. I'll walk away from anything that requires me to downgrade my child to get it, I said. Money can be replaced. My daughter's sense of worth cannot. He scoffed. You're being dramatic. I took a breath. This isn't revenge, I said. This is reality. I set the mic down carefully. Then I looked at Lily. Really looked. Her eyes were red, mascara smudged, but beneath the panic, there was something else. Calculation. Lily, I said softly, so only she could really hear, though I knew the nearest guests would catch it. If you had jumped in and said, Dad, absolutely not, we'd be having a very different conversation. She flinched. I didn't have time. You had time to cry over the house, I said. You had time to say kids are resilient, but you didn't have time to say my child matters. She opened her mouth, closed it. I felt calm, cold, but clear. I took off the engagement ring, the one I'd saved for, chosen carefully, and pressed it into her palm. Her fingers curled reflexively around it. What are you doing? She whispered. Setting a boundary, I said. I will not marry into a family that thinks my daughter is negotiable. Her breath hitched. So that's it? She said, voice rising. You're just walking away? Yes, I said, from this. Not from her. Never from her. I turned to Emma. She was shaking, eyes wide. I walked over, knelt, and hugged her. I heard him. She whispered into my shoulder. He doesn't want me. I want you, I said fiercely. You. Always. I bought you a house, baby. A real one. With a dock and everything. You and me are going to go see it soon, okay? She pulled back, tears on her cheeks. A house? She sniffed. Your house, I said. No. One can tell you you're not allowed to live there. Her lower lip trembled. I can put my toys there. You can fill the whole place with your toys if you want, I said. Behind us, people murmured. Some looked uncomfortable. Some looked furious. At Mark, not at me. A few slipped out quietly, phones buzzing. I knew the group chats were already on fire. Mark started talking about sleeping on it and lawyers, but his voice sounded distant. I stood up, took Emma's hand, and nodded at Jenna. Ready to go? I asked them. More than, Jenna said, and in front of 50 people under fairy lights and hollow congratulations, I walked out of my own engagement party. The fallout started before I even got Emma buckled in. My phone buzzed nonstop. Lily, we need to talk. You can't just leave like that. Susan, you humiliated our family. Mark, you'll regret this. That house was a huge opportunity. I hit do not disturb. Emma sat in the back seat clutching the napkin Cat Lily had drawn months ago. Are you mad at me? She asked. No, I said. None of this is your fault. Then why was he so mean? Some grown-ups are selfish, I said. They think loving someone new means making less room for the people who were there first. They're wrong. She stared out the window. Do I still get to see Lily? Not for a while, I said. Right now, it's you, me, and your house. She exhaled, small and shaky. Okay. At home, I forwarded the worst messages to Jenna. She called immediately. Legal opinion, you owe them nothing, she said. Friend opinion, I'm proud of you. Also, Mark can take it up with someone else. By morning, my voicemail was full. Lily swinging between sobbing and rage. You blindsided me. You made my dad look like a monster. Mark left one cold message about walking away from a community. I sat at the kitchen table, Emma coloring at the other end, and wrote one email. Subject: engagement and future contact, Lily. Last night was never about a house. It was about my daughter. When your father said Emma couldn't live in a home he was gifting us, you had a choice. You could have said, she is part of this family. You didn't. I will not marry into a family that treats my child as negotiable. The engagement is over. I won't attend further family events. If you ever want to make amends, not to me, but to Emma, we can discuss it with a therapist present. Until then, please don't contact us. Carl. I read it twice and hit send. Then I blocked Mark, Susan, and the chorus of "You're overreacting." Instead of replying to Lily's new numbers, I texted my locksmith. By evening, the locks were changed. That weekend, I drove Emma to the lake. She ran through the empty rooms, footsteps echoing. "This is all mine?" she asked. "Yours and mine," I said. "And when you're really big, just yours." She stared at the water. "Does Lily get to come?" "Not right now," I said. "Only people who treat you like you matter get to come here." She thought for a second, then nodded. "Okay," she said. "Then it will be a good house."